Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new edition of GameTales, the show where we talk for an hour or two or so about a great many things relating to video games and sometimes even more than just video games. And today I'm joined again by Stefan from the channel Stefan Nonsense. Hi Stefan.
Hello Unicom and good morning, afternoon to our listeners.
So what are we talking about today, Stefan?
Today we're gonna be dovetailing off of one of your more recent videos. So you had a video in which you talked about the top 7 gaming trends that need to stop. So that made me think about the gaming trends that did stop. So that's what we're gonna try to discuss and approach in this episode. We'll see through how many we can get.
We have a giant list of things that we think that are not really a thing now. They used to be. Some of them may still be around, like in a niche form in more indie sectors, but in the mainstream they are basically dead.
Yeah, or at least they're not.
You're not going to see a Call of Duty with these ideas anytime soon again.
Pretty much, yeah. So not necessarily mainstream, but not that popular. Not nearly as popular as they were once.
Yeah. We're not talking about adventure games because they had their moment in the spotlight. They went a bit underground, more in Europe, more in less frequented places by the big publishers. But now they're sort of making a comeback, and then they went away again. They have their own layer on which they will always exist. These ones, however, have died.
Yeah. Also, we have 2 episodes dedicated to adventure games. So
you should go watch that. Yeah. These genres, however, these ideas have sort of stopped at a point. Like there's a sheer cliff, and you can probably see an imprint in the ground in their shape, like Wile E. Coyote.
Pretty much.
So I think the first one we can start off with and say that it's effectively that is the rhythm game.
Yes, and what a crazy couple of years. I think it was more than a couple of years. I think it was at least 5 to 7 years, maybe?
Around 5 years, I think.
Around 5 years when rhythm game.
It started in Japan. Because Japan does really cool things with arcades, with Dance Revolution and stuff like that. And
it's an entire culture, subculture, separate thing.
So it's still kind of a thing there. They're still making those arcades. They still have arcades. Nobody else does. They still have it. So it's still a thing there. But in the form that most of the people know it, the form
in
that
the
was
West, and we're talking about the West,
the form that was parodied on South Park, the Guitar Heroes, that's gone.
The Guitar Heroes, the rock bands,
the DJ Heroes,
which was I think they got 2 of those out, if I'm not mistaken.
I think the last one. I'm not sure if the last one actually sold anything. Because it was like right at the tail end when Activision decided it was done with the genre and moved on to running something else.
Yeah, but man, for those years,
it was big.
You can say this was mainstream because they became such great, and you have to admit they were really great party games.
Yeah,
they were stupendous party games.
Party games as well. They're not really all that popular anymore, are they?
No, I guess not. Nowadays, I think a lot of gaming humans have gone back to the tabletop stuff, like card games. Like some light-ish board games here and there. There's quite a bit of that going on. But yeah, Man, and I remember back at that time in Romania, getting the guitars and everything was nigh impossible, especially since we had computers.
Yeah,
and because they were expensive. They were.
Yeah, it was very profitable for the people making the guitars, and after the genre died, the makers, stuff like Mad Catz, sort of started having problems. They went bankrupt for a while.
Yeah, that is the problem when you put all of your eggs in the same peripheral basket.
Well, they were diversified, but they diversified in stupid ways by making mice that cost like as much as a human organ and weren't really all that good.
Well,
We reviewed one of them.
there's nothing. Yeah, no, it's the epic one which you reviewed, and
Then assembled.
during you, I don't know, prepping the video.
Yeah, the company went
went
bankrupt.
under.
Yeah.
So
fun times.
you have something. You have something to put on that the gaming HD awards.
Bankrupted Mad Cats.
Hey man, it's like how many people can say that? Not a lot. There's no such thing as bad press. But yeah, and I have to say, it's still enjoyable, man. I mean, plug in one of those games, and it's still enjoyable, even if I played it. I played Guitar Hero 3, I believe, a lot with my keyboard. But the way in which I did it was, which I think a lot of people did, holding the keyboard as a guitar and mapping the buttons to the F1 till F5 buttons.
Yeah, that's how Frets on Fire was recommended to be played.
Yeah,
Frets on Fire being the free game.
Yes, so that's how I played that game a lot. But then it's interesting to analyze rhythm games as a sort of a study case, not necessarily because of how successful it was, although it was with the mainstream, because and how much money it generated, because it generated a hell of money. But I think it's a great subject to study into how a genre in any sort of, let's say, overall art can go and will go through variations, and how everyone will think of basically any sort of sellable derivative of it, because we started with the basic game, and then the game started having a bit of a sort of a, not really a story, but a bit of a theme, and then they went into then they added in drums and stuff, and then they added the completely thematic games like the Beatles, the Aerosmiths, the Metallicas, which if you're a fan of any of those bands, they're awesome. Those games are awesome for you. And then they added in the voice as well, and then then there were no other derivative hills to climb.
Well, it's not just that, but they were releasing 3 or 4 of these. Like, just Guitar Hero was releasing 3 or 4 of these a year. And plus the competition,
Exactly,
there was just too many. If they had spread them out a bit more, like maybe not 3 or 4 years, just 2 of them a year, it would have gone on a bit longer. The people wouldn't have been as tired as quickly of it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm with you on that one. But this is also yet another part of why it's a great study case, because it will also show you what oversaturation does. In like we basically saw it's like watching fruit flies for evolution, and when you tinker with some of their genes and see what happens in like 10 generations, because they live for 2 weeks. This is what we got to see with rhythm games. We saw a very concentrated, a very condensed version of evolution of a genre, an art genre, let's call it, or a trend. It's the same thing with a fashion trend. It starts somewhere. In this case, it reached an apex. Then came the copycats, the derivatives, and then due to oversaturation, it tanked and it hasn't come back.
Well,
10 years?
Yeah, around actually, there wasn't 10. There was Rock Band 4, but it had so little interest that they couldn't even crowdfund the PC version of it because nobody wanted it.
There was another thing a couple of years ago. I think it actually was successful with some with a with a more complicated guitar controller, and the game was basically meant to teach you how to actually play
Rocksmith.
guitar.
Yeah, Rocksmith you actually use an actual guitar, like not a controller. It's an actual guitar.
Yeah, okay. So it basically shows you the chords or where to place your finger or something. Yeah. I think
that's an sort of an offshoot of what the Guitar Hero idea was of
exactly.
Guitar Hero itself is a spin-off of stuff like Parappa the Rapper, and especially the Lamb one, Jammer Lammy, which is a game from 1999 that was about a lamb playing guitar. And I'm not sure if it had a controller, but it was a PlayStation. PlayStation. The PlayStation really is the place where all this started, because it's from Japan. That's where all the rhythm games started. And Rocksmith is sort of the one of the final incarnations of this kind of idea, where it actually teaches you something useful. You can actually learn to play guitar. And another offshoot of it was, what else could they add? I mean, they have drums, they have guitars, they have
the microphones from SingStar.
Microphones, yeah. Wii Music added flutes. And
didn't the Ocarina of Time? No, yeah. I think I'm just.
They had an Ocarina controller for Wii Music, I believe.
Okay, so granted, that's Nintendo, and even simply mentioning their name could get this video claimed.
Yeah. And then we have stuff like, it's both an evolution of Guitar Hero and both a callback to Dance Dance Revolutions. There's the dance genre now. The We Dance, the Dance Stars.
Is that still ongoing? Because I remember
it's constantly. Ubisoft will not make us forget. They start every E3 with that thing, and it's still selling a lot.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly how it's selling, since I mean the Kinect isn't the thing anymore, so nobody's buying it. The Wii Motion thing isn't the thing, and the PlayStation Move isn't the thing either.
This is what I was wanted to. Isn't I mean, we have on the list. We have motion control games somewhere on the list. Didn't those kind of? I mean, the dance things for Sony. I know for a certainty you had to keep to have those weird glowing dildos in your hands.
You need a camera, and Sony still sells the camera. They still have it as part of the camera is still part of their ecosystem. Well. Yeah, the camera is part of their ecosystem, because they also need it for the motion controls, that if you have motion control games, and for the VR stuff. But the camera on itself will do its own thing for other games like Dance Central or what's its name. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure if Microsoft still. I'm gonna check and see if Microsoft still sells the Kinect.
I don't know about that, but we do need cameras, I think. The only good thing I can say about the dance games is that I guess they're really good cardio.
Yeah, it's still on sale.
Home. Oh, it's on sale, obvious. Yeah, okay, sure. Is it like a Black Friday sale or?
No, it's like on sale. It's still in stores in stock.
Oh, okay. I guess the most useful application of the Kinect now is if you want to, if you're like a hobbyist, an electrician, electronist hobbyist, and you want to make something, like a motion sensitive alarm system or like something more detailed. I think that's the most useful thing for Kinect right now.
That was the only use it ever had, even when it was new. People were hacking it, and they put themselves into Minecraft. They tied the 3D camera to blocks being built on the fly in Minecraft to represent them, so they could digitize themselves into Minecraft live via blocks. It was a great time.
If anything, at least that should be the lasting memory of the Kinect.
Mm-hmm. That
weird Peter Molyneux child,
and of course the dance from the Star Wars game. When they show the Star Wars game at E3, oh my God, you're gonna have a lightsaber and move it. It's a dance game now because nothing else worked. All the other the Kinect was insufficient for any kind of gameplay. So you got the I'm Han Solo dance and the one with the Emperor Palpatine and the Boba Fett song, and And you realize why Disney decided, okay, yeah, we're gonna reboot everything. We don't want any of that.
That can happen.
Yeah.
No more. No more. But yeah, rhythm games, they were insanely big. I'm actually curious how many of our listeners still have their guitars and drums and stuff in like a closet somewhere.
Hoping to one day be called back to action.
Let us know. I'm super curious about that.
Probably generally people that try and beat Dark Souls using a Kinect or a guitar. Because people have tried. I've seen them.
That's one way of adding your own level of difficulty to games. But yeah, that's about. Oh, we should mention a bit. So the DJ thing, what was it called?
DJ Hero.
The DJ Hero, you basically had a
turntable.
It wasn't even an actual turntable. That's the problem.
Yeah, it was a touch-sensitive thing.
It was a touch-sensitive thing that kind of sort of replicated the turntable, but not really. So you might as well just, gotten yourself an actual, a bit more money, gotten yourself an actual turntable and actually get into like some basic DJing techniques, which you'll find tutorials on the YouTubes for. It's way harder, in my experience, to learn how to play the guitar than to practice, turntabling, to be honest.
You could do it like all the big DJs do that you see in most shows where they just sort of move their fingers around some knobs and never touch any of them because it's all being played back from their laptop because they already did the work beforehand.
No, well, that's that's more of a. I mean, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but as a person who has done that at various events, I can tell you we actually play the songs and stuff like that. But it is all digital. We didn't use actual turntables. We had a sound thingy. But yeah, that's it for rhythm games. They were immense while they were.
Yeah, the genre may be dead, but for a while we created a lot of value for our shareholders.
Yeah.
That's from an old comic about, oh sure, we destroyed the world, but for a short time we made a lot of value for our shareholders.
Yeah, this is what's happening with Blizzard at the moment. I think.
Poor Blizzard. Poor Blizzard.
I think we're gonna have to do a comeback, a look back episode on Blizzard after a couple of months, or at least when the most official, freshest news from them comes. So, because a lot of stuff has been trickling out since the BlizzCon edition.
Yeah,
So
I read a piece about how expensive it is to live in Irving, and some of the Blizzard employees can't afford, and they live in their cars.
and then there's a bunch of other stuff about.
And now I kind of understand why a drunken David Brevik, the guy that named Diablo, was blabbering about on a stream by accident that Blizzard may have canned the employee reward system where they got a share of the revenue generated by the sales.
Okay.
If he just drunkenly blurted that out when he was accidentally on a stream hosted by his wife.
Yeah. So, but again, we'll save that for a different future episode. Let's move on to yet another. I'm gonna.
Favorite. If it's the next one, it's my favorite.
We're actually gonna conflate two things because they were popular. Two different things that were popular at the same time with the same type of gamer. And the first one is Farmville, and the second one is Angry Birds. Which I know. Technically, they don't have a lot in common. One was, the bane of any human's existence for a while. And the other one is it's like the basics of a mobile game.
Yeah.
But they were popular with the same sort of, and they actually created, I think, or helped create the category of a casual gamer. Would I be right or wrong in that one, or somewhat?
In terms of Angry Birds was a perfect game for mobile devices, for touch mobile devices.
I'm not saying it was bad or anything. I'm not saying it was bad or anything. I played it as well, actually. One of the few mobile games I played. I'm just saying it was crazy popular with casuals.
Was. And in terms of it creating the casual, I would say that everything PopCap did had more of an influence on that. But Angry Birds was definitely more.
I think it was more in popular culture because you would see it referenced in like.
It has a movie.
Yeah, well, that's just horrible and it's recent. No, but
my nephew and brother like it. They made me watch it.
I know Conan had a part on his show when he was playing Angry Birds, and so it became part of this pop culture discourse in the mainstream channels, not even. So that's why. And Farmville, I wasn't on Facebook when Farmville was a thing.
Yeah,
actually, but I am aware of what it was.
I blame Farmville for ruining video games for the most part. Because any city building, any strategy management game, anything that could have been made on mobile devices that had any sort of depth was ruined by the fact that Farmville, a game that has no gameplay. You click on a cow when the game tells you can, and bam, now you have 2 cows. That was a massive seller. Not seller, but it made incredible amounts of money. And why try to do something proven to be less successful that requires more work from you and has a niche audience that will never be able to generate that kind of money when you can just do Farmville? And that just ruined things.
I think that's just. I think we've just found the next subject of one of your gaming culture videos. So you can.
I actually think I made it. Did Farmville ruin video games? I think I made it once.
You possibly have. But yeah, these again were giant. I mean, I actually think Farmville is partially responsible for getting a bunch of people onto Facebook to begin with.
Yeah, I know that for a fact.
I would get those emails. Like this person needs grain, join Facebook, or some stuff like that.
Yep.
And Angry Birds also basically went through the same development, evolution, derivative process that rhythm games did. I think it lasted a bit longer, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But
they shoved everything they could in there. They shoved Star Wars in there.
Exactly. They went through the thematic things as well. So there's an obvious. These are really interesting to study from my perspective as a wannabe game designer and person interested in marketing and general gaming in general.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting to look at that and how big they were and how they just disappeared. It's not like they waned. It's not like they went slowly into the sunset. No, they just there would. Now it's a thing. Next week it stopped being a thing.
Mm-hmm. And the thing that still kind of bugs me about Farmville is that one of the people that worked on at Zynga as chief game designer was Brian Reynolds, who made Alpha Centauri, Civilization 2, and a bunch of other games. Really magnificent games. And he used his power of being a good game designer for evil.
Maybe he wanted to make some money for a change.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to pay the bills, man.
I know.
Well, is he? I don't think is he still with? I don't think he's still with Zynga.
No, I don't. He's well, he was a big, huge games for a while. I'm not sure where he is now. Maybe retired, I think, or something. But he did make stuff like Frontierville and Cityville and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, so all of them went through the derivative.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those were big and relatively recent. But for our next one, we're going back to the past.
Back to the olden days, and this is a genre that's sort of making a comeback now. It's getting more traction as people realize, oh my god, it's so much cheaper to film stuff instead of modeling and animating crap.
It's interesting I mean, it's not interesting. It's a well-known fact that, fashion trends in general or art trends come back after a while.
Yeah, so we're talking about the FMVs.
Yes, FMVs, which stand for full motion video, which in the olden time was anything but full motion. Well, it was full motion in the sense that it was live action, but the resolutions available at the time
and the frame rate was not what you would call full motion.
Yeah,
15 frames a second at best.
Yeah, you would have like, I don't know, maximum 320 pixels.
Yeah, it was in the early days of CD video, and compression wasn't as good as it is today. Standards were not as good as they are now.
Yeah, the technology wasn't exactly there. It was there, but it was like the difference between I don't know, steam engine and a very modern, super efficient combustion engine.
And PCs back then didn't have enough power to actually decode a properly encoded high detail video either.
They both work, but the type of efficiency and power they give off slightly different. Although tangent, I think there's some very efficient steam engine designs out there for various applications. I think in some circumstances they're actually better than. Anyway, sorry about that. I don't know, weird steampunk tangent.
Yeah, we'll go on these for some time.
So FMVs. Those were a couple of the titles that are FMVs are actually some of the better / best games in those genres made. For instance, like the Wing Commanders.
Oh yeah, Wing Commander 3. That was the most expensive video game ever made at the time because of the FMV portion. And it wasn't something that distracted from the core gameplay, from the dogfighting, the space, shooting things. It added to it. It added a layer of story that they could not have made otherwise, because it had really good actors and they were well directed. And you weren't just watching cutscenes, you were interacting with them. You had choices. You decided how things played out, and the characters would react depending on your choices. They would remember what you did.
On the other hand, most of these games were made with no-name actors on really tight budgets,
or they were made with real B, C, D level actors, and when the games got scrapped, they were made into E, F category movies. There's one with Jasmine Bleeth, I think her name is, that got turned into a movie. I think I saw a review of it at some point on
It's very
YouTube.
possible. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you on that one. But yeah, there is a couple of them. There's a couple of very well-known cult titles, such as Reaper, in which you get a Christopher Walken who is full-on Christopher Walken.
The game I'm referring to, by the way, was Maximum Surge.
Okay, okay, sure. Never heard of that one, actually.
It was cancelled in '96.
Ah, that's why. Oh, yes, no, now I remember.
The film is called Game Over. It was released in 2003.
Yeah, because I think I saw the movie. Actually, I think I'm actually saw the movie now that you're sparking about the memory. But if you want to see some Christopher Walken at his Walkeniest, look for the Reaper clips with him. It's sublime. It's wonderful.
There was one with Doc Brown, with Christopher, what's his name? From Back to the Future. Yeah, Christopher Lloyd. Toonstruck, I think it was.
Could be. I don't know. That one doesn't ring a bell.
It was sort of a mix between live action and cartoons like Roger Rabbit, but it was a game.
Now that I think about it, we actually had a very FMV computer game.
Oh yeah, I know. Laura's Mysteries, and not Lara Croft, a different Laura.
Different, but I'm also talking about Red Alert 2.
Oh yeah, the not porn one.
Yes, because they had But is it fair to call to call it an FMV? Or are those just cutscenes?
The Command and Conquer series always had cutscenes with FMV in it because it was cheap to make. And in the first games, those were the people working on the games. Like, they couldn't afford to pay actors. They just had a camera and digitized whatever they could.
Yeah, but later on they got Tim motherfucking Curry.
Yeah, that was the third one. That was when they. By that time, it was a style of the series. It was made to be campy, to be kind of cringy, kind of weird. I mean, in the second order too, they had Udokir, best known as being the Mune Führer.
Also, he was in Wing Commander.
Yeah,
in the movie.
Yeah, I think he was.
Not the games.
Yeah, the games had higher budget actors.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you for sure he was in the movie. Oh boy, that's a bad movie. Did we talk about it when we talked about the movies?
I think we did. We talked about how Chris Roberts tried and didn't really.
You mentioned he was in Das Boot.
Yeah.
Yeah, we went through that. Oh yeah, and that the cats had no hair. In the movie, not the games. But yeah, FMVs, man. And actually, I think, like you said, you mentioned there is maybe a bit of renaissance in the genre, maybe on some niche
there was
things.
Actually a recent one with I think it was Late Shift or Last Shift. It's on Steam. You can play it on Steam, but it was shown in some theaters where people actually had a remote control in their hands and all voted on what the choice would be. So it was like the cinema was playing the game, if you will. Sort of like Twitch plays something, which
that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad idea to bring some interaction into the cinema, because hell knows they need to do some stuff to get more people in.
And because these are cheaper to make than most video games, because you just film stuff, they're starting to crop up a lot.
Yeah, especially nowadays when you don't have to pay for actual film and to actually develop it, and then to digitize it, which each of those steps cost money and time. Now it's just digital, baby.
I think the people that made the Contradiction video game / movie, they're, at least the actors, they're like in 3 or 4 other other FMVs that are coming out in the next couple of years.
It's gonna be something to keep an eye out, because I do think the idea, the medium, I do think that it can be done well if if it's done well, because the examples exist of it being done well. So especially now when it's cheaper, I don't see why it shouldn't. It's actually one of the things on the list that could actually benefit from modern technology the most.
I mean, take Telltale's approach to adventure games. One way they could have kept the ball rolling and not murder everybody working there like it did was, okay, let's make the next game FMV, because it was a lot cheaper than making an actual game, and since they didn't have to bother with all the animations, with all the bug testing, because the games ran kind of badly, it was just mostly video, they could have probably gotten a year or 2 more of life.
To be honest, now that you mention it, I mean, it might not have been possible for, I don't know, Sam and Max.
But for The Walking Dead, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, with like some random other characters, not the main things. But I'm just thinking, Secret of Monkey Island with actors would be kind of cool to watch.
Have you seen the theater play version?
No, there's a theater version?
Yes, some kids in high school made a theater play version of Monkey Island, and it was on YouTube. Last time I saw it, I think it was like 5 years ago. It's a neat experience. It's like 40 minutes. It's not all that long, but it's a really neat. Cool. It plays on all the concepts of the game, like the magic trousers. They can fit anything.
Yeah, no, they would that, and that would be that much easier to do whilst editing or with special effects. But I just think that would really lend itself to an interactive and live action sort of thing, because it's not that hard to make let Chuck's head burn, or those types of effects are kind of old hat by now.
Yeah, even we can do it if our PCs run well enough.
Yes, and if we have like proper lighting and a decent enough
Oh
green
god,
screen
lighting.
and whatnot.
I wish I
And
had proper lighting.
yeah, and whatnot. So yeah, I think there's actually a future in that, and yeah, that might be something to look forward to. That would be a great combination. That actually would be the best blending of making games and movies, since you actually talked about that with camera shake and whatnot in cutscenes. But approaching a game, making a game from that perspective, I think that's something I would really enjoy, because I would get to basically write and design a game and also shoot a movie at the same time.
Starting to think. Sierra Online used to make a lot of these. They made Phantasmagoria, which was a really gory video game / movie.
The first one, Phantasmagoria 2, on the other hand, is just insanity.
Yeah, you turn into a cockroach at one point, I think.
It's that's just it's something special, something very special.
You can go crazy with videos. It's a lot less hassle than programming all this stuff and making all the just film it, like make a CGI of it, a small one.
Yeah, you really you're giving me some food for thought here.
We should make one day.
It would still require coding, which it's nowhere near my suits. But the other parts, the writing and the filming and the stuff, that sounds like sounds like something we could make like a proof of concept relatively easy.
Join us on Kickstarter next year.
Yes. That would be we'd have to make it like a cross European continent sort of thing. So yeah, FMVs might come back. What a big thing. Kind of sucked back then, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
Overall, I'm not saying sure it can have like a couple of greatness things, but overall sucky. Like hair metal. Yeah, there's a couple of fun songs here and there. Overall,
we're not gonna take it.
Exactly.
And
so
then there's the other ones.
That's it. That's it for FMVs. But I'm gonna have to think about that. Ooh, like a low magic fantasy inspired thing, so that I can work it into my tabletop system. I know. I have some weird ideas. I used to have some weird ideas about that. So could make it turn-based even. Crazy. Oh, that makes them okay. We're gonna develop this off the air.
Yeah, we're gonna have a different podcast about that one day.
Probably. Now you can. How about you take the next one?
Zombie survival games. Remember when that was literally the only thing you would see on the market, like everywhere,
and also in the movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Thankfully, it's still sort of around. I mean, we still get the Call of Duty Zombies, which now has Mila Jovovich, of course, because why wouldn't it? And the Project Zomboid is probably going to be released sometime. And I think State of Decay actually came out quite soon. And DayZ will come out of early access after 5 years, like this year, hopefully, not with all the content in it. But the genre has sort of really kind of dropped off the map a bit. It's not as in your face as it used to be, because every game that came out used to be a zombie survival game. All of them.
Yeah. It became tiring.
Yeah, absolutely.
After the couple of really fun or sort of innovative titles, like after the Left 4 Deads and the one in which you play like a reporter who has to...
Oh, Dead Rising, yeah.
Yeah, Dead Rising, and that's the other, the 50s inspired one, where you play a zombie.
Oh, that's not a zombie survival. That's from before this genre became a thing.
That is true, but now I was just going into zombie mode. So after the genre did a couple of rather different and cool things, then we started getting the sequels and the derivatives and the special multiplayer versions, the Nazi zombies, the rave zombies, the whatever the zombies. I don't know.
Yeah, there was one with Elvis zombies. I think I reviewed it once. I think it
I
was
think
Trapped Dead.
did GTA ever get a zombie mod or something?
GTA did not, but Saints Row did, and
Surprising.
Red Dead Redemption 1 did. It had a
Hmm.
zombies DLC.
It was the zombies, man. Holy shit.
And it's not just the zombie shooter thing where you murdered zombies, but it's the other kind. The humans are also the enemy. That started to blow up once the Walking Dead the TV series hit, and also there was the zombie RPG proposal by Double Bear Studios. It was two people that used to work at Troika back in the day.
Okay.
And they posted an idea. Okay, we want to make this game. We have an idea for this game where you play as survivors in a zombie apocalypse, and it's not your job to kill the zombies. You have to just survive. You have to find people to work with you. Hopefully, they will not betray you. You have to gain their confidence and make sure that their needs are met. You have to get food. You have to make tough decisions because some of them may be bit, some of them may be harboring a dark secret and something like that. And you have to constantly find new shelter and barricade it and stuff like that. And the instant that proposal popped up on the internet, a ton of games with that idea came out, and they were really bad, like rushed. I think Kerberos made one that was just horrible. It was barely functional. I'm not sure if it was Kerberos. I'm sorry if I'm incorrectly attributing the game to them. But a lot of them came out. And the game itself, by Double Bear, eventually was released as Dead State, and not a great state, but it did get an enhanced edition that was a bit more, a bit nicer. But it was still a really low budget game made with the help of the people that made Age of Decadence. And there was the old joke that Age of Decadence is going to come out first Thursday after the apocalypse, and then we're going to have Dead State, which is actually going to be an ARPG. An alternate reality RPG because you're going to be playing it in real life because it's going to be a zombie apocalypse.
It's gonna be the fun. Well, Age of Decadence did release quite some time ago.
Yeah,
and not only
I think it came out. It came out after Dead State even.
not only that, but they also made some sort of a side quel to it called the Dungeon Rats.
Ooh.
And right now they're working on like a space colony ship sort of game.
Oh, that sounds nice.
That's what they've been doing for a bit now. It's still in the early phases, but that's what they're planning right now. In case you're interested in Age of Decadence, I reviewed it on my channel. It is awesome.
And I still have not played past the demo.
Yeah, it's a difficult, it's a serious experience.
Mm.
You don't take it lightly.
And speaking of things that you can absolutely take lightly, there was a style of game a while ago. I blame Myst for it. The game where you run around aimlessly on an island and hit switches. That eventually, people got tired of it because I'm probably going to go on a limb here, but I don't think a lot of people really enjoyed Myst all that much for its atmosphere because it didn't have any. I didn't really like Myst. But people tried to add atmosphere to that idea, and they thought, okay, horror would be a nice fit. And like that, we got Penumbra, which was a really nice game. It was a game where you would search through a abandoned, I think it was Arctic base, and there was some stuff in there that was kind of scary. There were monsters that you had no idea what they were, where they were. They would be chasing you, or maybe not. Maybe it was your imagination. You'd be looking for stuff that you needed to survive, like batteries, like clues for what you needed to do to actually get back out and escape. And that in itself inspired more games that were even less interesting and progressively less and less. And then we got the eventually the Slenderman games. Slenderman being an internet meme that somehow got out of control. They all do. Goddamn memes.
Much like urban myths or older myths in the olden times. Yeah, that's this is our modern digital mythology.
Yeah, and the idea of a Slenderman game is that you run around aimlessly in a forest and look at notes and hope you don't find Slenderman.
Yay.
There have been multiple games games in that Slenderman meta universe, and a bunch of them that were not. Like game devs got together and said, "Okay, this is popular. We're going to make this," and they made some really horrible games. One of them was had Twitch integration. I played it on the stream once, and I kept asking people, "Okay, write stuff in the comment in the chat that will trigger things in game." We didn't have any clue what words actually triggered things. It was kind of a horrible experience. As a game, it was absolutely wretched. And it was actually funny because one of the few pieces I found about it was a game and an article in defense of it. It was written by Jessica Chobot of IGN, and she was defending her right to write a video game as a game journalist. So the PR backspin on that started really soon because it was a terrible game. I mean, horrible. And there were so many of them.
Isn't the X Nights at Freddy's series?
It's kind of in the same vein.
Because those things were huge.
Yeah, those things were super popular. There's a movie coming out. There's a movie coming out based on that.
Well, technically speaking, like you could spin the weird mythology because it's like some deep stuff. I watched a couple of videos about it, and
I think most of the mythology was mostly made up by that game theorist guy. It was inferred by him and then added into the game because of what he said.
Hey, it's very possible. I'm not saying that the creators sometimes don't take the interpretations of their fans and run with them. I actually think it's a great idea. It's kind of like when you're DMing and you're saying something to be ambiguous, and then you let your players just let their paranoia take over.
Mm-hmm.
And usually the things they come up with tend to be even worse for them than anything you had ready. So you just modify on the go. So it's not the worst thing ever to cherry pick some of the things that a fan base, a very ardent fan base, says about your thing. That sometimes the curtains are just blue, man, but they don't need to know that. Not from you, at least.
But the genre has sort of died off a bit because people realize that
it's just jump scares, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of jump scares, and that's it. And a lot of ooh, dark, scary, ooh, and nothing. Absolutely nothing. Sort of drove itself off a cliff. But it was very popular for a while.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're talking about. Although it has to be noted, with the exception of the FMVs, we are talking about things that have happened in the very relatively recent past.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can actually trace a very direct link between the development of the internet and YouTube and how quickly these trends appear and disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are fueled a lot by streamers, at least in the past 5 years, let's say.
Yep.
So that's an interesting thing to keep in mind. Although the next genre we're talking about, we actually dedicated an entire show to it a while back. So we're just gonna lightly touch on it.
Real-time strategies. Yeah.
Yes, because we will be getting. So we got StarCraft Remastered. And sometime next year, we'll be getting Warcraft 3 Reforged, which, to be honest, looks and sounds kind of cool. Really cool.
And sometime after that, we're going to get Command & Conquer 1 remade and Red Alert 1 remade.
Yeah, exactly. Those were announced as well. So whilst I'm not comfortable saying that the genre is resurrected or anything, because
at least big publishers that own the rights to those games are making them again, even if they're remakes,
because they want to make money.
Yeah, and if they're gonna make money, they're gonna make more of them.
That still remains to be seen. Technically, yeah, but I don't think they're gonna. It's not like we're seeing new titles. That's the idea.
True, but if StarCraft Remaster had not been a well-selling game, they would have not made Warcraft 3 remastered.
I don't know. I think they were working already on Warcraft 3 by that time. And considering what we've been hearing, rumor-ish from Blizzard, if it was in deep development, they wouldn't have cut it because they want the money. The shareholders want that cash.
Yeah. I mean, Blizzard at one time used to be the studio that, okay, this game is 99% done, let's cancel it.
Titan. Yeah.
Oh, and Lord of the Clans. You can play Lord of the Clans from end to end. It's a fully playable game. They canceled it.
Yeah, I have it. I downloaded the archive when it was available on the interwebs. I haven't played it yet, but maybe I will.
That's a blast.
So yeah, RTSs we're just skimming past them because we're getting some hardcore remasters or remakes soon. Really curious what they're gonna do with the Command and Conquer one.
Well, it's going to be a lot in the vein of what StarCraft the remastered one was, because the graphics are being remastered by the same studio that did the graphics for StarCraft Remastered. Because that wasn't made by Blizzard. It was made by some studio in Indonesia, I think.
Yeah, no, that's cool. But I'm just thinking if how they will how they'll replicate the building mechanics. If it will be exactly like it was, or I don't know.
They've discussed a bit about it, and I think they may go for an approach that will allow players to. They may either get feedback from the players before they get to the implementing that stuff part in, or they may have the ability to switch between modern and classic. I think it's still in discussion because the game just started development. It's Electronic Arts' way of saying, okay, we're sorry for rivals, so have your RTSs.
Well, they're saying that we still don't know what the end product will be like.
Well, it's made by the same people that made the original game, so it's probably going to be.
No. I'm not talking about the quality. I'm just talking about
the loot boxes. How they're going to shove them in.
Basically, yeah. I'm just talking about if they're going to make it a service, if they're going to make it require server ping to function.
Yeah.
Those tiny things. Because
also dying trends, single player games with offline single player. That's going to be
that's something that's close to not existing anymore. Yeah, because also apparently this was an issue in Blizzard relating to Diablo 3, that there was no constant stream of revenue coming from it because it didn't have skins or loot boxes or microtransactions, as opposed to Overwatch and Hearthstone.
Yeah, that's. Diablo 3 initially had that giant auction house that basically was a way to monetize gold farming and ruin the experience of the game itself.
Yeah,
and when they shut that down because nobody liked it, it lost all its revenue, all its continuous revenue.
Wasn't that a great idea?
Mm-hmm. They could have gone the way of Path of Exile, which is still online because it's a free game, but it only has cosmetics. You can only buy cosmetics, that and tab stashes. Stash tabs, I mean.
Yeah.
And you only start off with four tabs, which are bigger than, I think it's about 6 times the size of the stash you had in Diablo 2.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's gigantic. And I thought okay, that's going to be more than enough. After 5 years of playing it, that's not enough. If you're going to play for 5 years, you're going to have to spend like $5 on the game someday to get another stash tab.
That's interesting. Well, probably the Blizzard of old didn't think that's a Blizzard thing to do. I kind of think the Activision in Blizzard will think that's the type of thing to do for Diablo 3.
Mm-hmm.
At the Diablo
very 4, least. Yeah.
4. Sorry about that. I'm just stupid today. Sorry about that. But yeah, that's it for RTSs. We will obviously talk more on them when and if new stuff happens.
But somehow tied to the RTS and to strategy games in general, there's the war game.
This has always been very. It was popular, but I always thought it was a bit more of a niche thing.
Well, in the late 80s and the early 90s, it was a big genre. War games were a thing. They were like big sellers. You had your Gettysburg, yours close. I forget their names. The Action something. A lot of them focused on the American Civil War or the American War for Independence. There was and World War II and World War One, but mostly on the American ones. A lot of them were made by Sid Meier. Mm-hmm. They were popular in the beginning, like in the early 80s. They were a really big genre because that's one of the few things you had back then. You didn't have real-time strategies. You barely had turn-based strategies as we know them now. You had war games. Everything was a war game back then.
Yeah, and before that, they were actually physical war games like Warhammer and older things.
Like the turn-based strategy genre and the RTS, they are based in the war games made by Chris Crawford, the one with the Romans, with the one with 1941, I think it was called, with the Axis and Allies.
Mm-hmm.
Like they used to be gigantic, and they were the mainstream, like for a lot of years, and then they sort of just vanished as people realized, we can have space aliens and have more fun than just clobbering Romans and
we can shoot things now, and there's a bunch of other. I mean, this tends to happen whenever technology develops and new things pop up. Sometimes the old things either have to somehow adapt, or they'll just be relegated to the past.
Yeah, it seems also because the back then what was mainstream in terms of public were highly educated people that had computers. They weren't kids. They weren't you and me.
Of course,
they were nerds, like big nerds that were into war games. Like they were into simulating the. They had their own like what you call dioramas with the battle of that thing, the Alamo. That kind of people. That was what it was aimed at. People that could afford a computer, could afford to build something like that. And
personal computing didn't really become a thing till the late till really the late 80s, to be honest.
Yeah, the Apple II basically kicked it off.
Till about that time, personal computing was still incredibly expensive, and it wasn't really something available to everyone. Sure, there were the Commodores that were low, and the Spectrum ZXs in our neck of the woods, which were more affordable, but for like those sort of applications, you needed a bit more power. And nowadays, it's just the Total War. Is there anything else besides Total War?
No, Total War, I wouldn't call it a war game, but a war game is like a very specific thing. It's about managing supply lines. It's about controlling a war. It's more akin to something like Hearts of Iron, like a grand strategy game where you have just one map and units that you move on it.
I guess, yeah. But
Total War is a lot more involved. Yeah, like actually no. It's not a grand strategy. It's a very focused war game. A grand strategy involves a lot more stuff than just war.
Okay, true. That's true.
So Hearts of Iron is still a war game. It looks like a grand strategy because actually the name grand strategy sort of was invented just to describe Europa Universalis and how it differs from civilization. So it's Hearts of Iron was maybe before that term was even coined, and it was still a war game. The genre is still alive. It's still, a lot of them are still being made, but by very, very small developers like Slytherin. I think they make like 2 or 3 of these games a year. They publish like 2 or 3 a year, and they all still look like they were made in 1993. You have a map with hexes, and you move units on them. It's the Panzer General kind of game, that stuff.
Yeah, but Panzer General, I always considered it to be purely in the turn-based category.
Yeah, a lot of war games were turn-based.
Yeah, I know. I feel you, but I wouldn't consider it that. It didn't have the same amount of depth that you're describing with logistic chains and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, Panzer could probably consider like a more watered-down version of it. Like an evolution of it, an attempt to find a new audience, which is also did it with Fantasy General, which was kind of the same thing, but with fantasy.
And I actually have the game. It was, I think it was free a year ago or something like that.
Yeah, I think it may have been free on GOG. I played it a long time ago, and I really got pissed off that all the missions had turn time. So you had to get to the city and conquer it by turn X. It didn't matter that you were next to it and every enemy was dead. If you weren't in the city at turn X, you lost. That pissed me off.
Timed missions always annoying, regardless of the genre of game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when you said turn-based strategy, that's kind of where I was thinking, like the Panzer General, the People General, same thing.
Oh,
but
yeah.
with well, not necessarily civilians, but more modern time. The Fantasy General, those were quite big at their respective times as well.
Turn-based games are also they're on the list of things that are not really all that common now, and I think Strauss Zelnick of 2K, I know that's Take-Two. Whoever the CEO of 2K Games, which is a subsidiary of Take-Two, said it best that strategy games are not contemporary anymore, even though one of his best sellers is Civilization.
Mm-hmm. Well, the term-based the term-based genre in general has a solid home in the indie realm, but more into the nowadays the most common thing is like the turn-based tactics / RPG, stemming from Darkest Dungeon. Pretty much that's kind of the main thing nowadays when it comes, or JRPG sort of stuff, which is turn-based and understand. So those tend to be the two main branches that turn-based games still live within the indie realm. And I should know because I love turn-based / RPG games, and I try to play a lot of those and talk about a lot of them as well.
For the most part, you won't see a lot of big companies put money in the turn-based game. I mean, apart from Civilization, which is still the biggest budget one.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. I don't think Total War doesn't.
Total War only has the management. Total War is a real-time tactics game with a turn-based meta game.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's not something we see that much anyway.
Well, there were a couple of them. There was the 13th Century Death and Glory. There was the King Arthur series. There was the King's Crusade series with the King will return tonight with a sword in his hand. The songs by Trebuchet. By the way, if anybody knows, is the band Trebuchet related to the band Holy Fury that's making all the official Crusader Kings 2 songs right now? Paradox Interactive has an official rock metal band that's making songs just for Crusader Kings 2.
Is it like an in-house band, like the one Blizzard
I'm not
has?
sure, but it exists.
Oh, that sounds cool. I mean, if you wanna have complete control of your product, that sounds crazy cool.
Yep. This sort of slipped under the radar, but I'm not seeing a lot of people talking about this. White Wolf, White Wolf, the publisher of those RPG books with the Vampire the Masquerade and stuff.
Yeah.
That's not a separate entity anymore. That was sort of eaten up by Paradox 2 weeks ago because they did a boo-boo.
2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
I'm aware they were bought a bunch of time ago.
Oh, yeah, they were bought. They were still an independent thing. They did their own thing. They were eaten up because they did a big major boo-boo, like...
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, go for it.
Well,
one
of the last books they published, I think it was published. It was a preview of it was posted on the internet, for so people could see what's happening. And there was the setting, I think, was Ukraine, Crimea exactly, and it was about vampires masquerading as LGBT people being sort of hunted down by the authorities, and it was sort of using the backdrop of real people being, captured, tortured, imprisoned, converted, murdered as a backdrop for the RPG setting, and people didn't really like that. So
I don't think they would have.
Yeah, and White Wolf isn't a thing anymore. It's Paradox now.
I don't see why anyone thought that. What would have been their argument? Because this is a fictional version of Earth?
I'm not sure what was, but Sham Shojani was very panicked on Twitter 2 weeks ago. I didn't know why. and he just posted like something about a GIF with vampires, and I started searching online, and oh yeah, I get it.
Okay, damn, yeah, yeah, very bad, very bad.
I know. Yeah, it was.
But Paradox did say they're gonna work.
Oh yeah,
They're considering working on some White Wolf properties.
they absolutely are, and now well, they have Hairbrained that made RPGs, so who knows?
Oh, they bought Hairbrain.
Oh yeah, they own Hairbrain now.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh yeah, it's right, man. Since you're into the news that much more than I am, I forget details such as that. But yeah, you're right. Okay, that doesn't sound like a very bad combo, to be honest.
Mhm.
So we'll have to wait and see what happens. They're gonna wait a while before they announce anything
Yeah.
after this. After the shit show you just
Well,
explained.
it wasn't really. It wasn't super public. Like, I'm actually shocked because usually the internet is just primed to outrage machine constantly about anything, and this one was swept like
This
it
one
was.
is this wasn't something that should have actually been like a proper reason for outrage, because the internet is meant outrages for shit that doesn't really mean that much. But in this case, yikes.
Yeah, and it was dealt with so fast that I think the internet didn't have time to react. Maybe we'll see in a month. People
Well,
realize, oh, this happened.
Sometimes it also has if it happened on the internet, it's always on the internet. So
Yeah.
sometimes things have to have the unpleasant characteristic of just popping up randomly and getting showcased much later than it actually happened.
Mhm.
As we have seen with a bunch of stuff, especially in the film related areas. But whoa, damn, yeah, sheesh.
Yeah. So there's going to be a lot more control over what gets published in those books from now on. More oversight.
Sheesh. Oh yeah, definitely. But on the other hand, I don't think Paradox tends to do good stuff.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
do.
I'm just going by
I mean,
Tyranny
back
and
in the day,
Stellaris.
I think they were the ones that published that really bad Dead State knockoff game back in the day, because they used to publish anything they could. They published games made by one person that was so filled with bugs it was almost unplayable. And then after a while, they said, okay, let's not publish games that are this unplayable anymore. Okay, I think their last one may have been. Magica, which is borderline unplayable sometimes because it was built on XNA by a couple of college kids.
Okay, well,
But it was wildly successful because it was so fun.
that was a long time ago.
Yeah, 2011. 2010, actually. I can't remember.
So yeah, we went through turn-based. Anything else about turn-based? No, not really.
They're not. I mean, developers have been asked to not put turn-based things in their games since the late 90s, since Diablo came out. And Larian was told, don't make turn-based combat in Divinity because nobody's going to play it. And they made a real time. And
It's kind of a pity, but at least it's still quite alive and well in the indie niche. So.
And hey, turn-based is still a very viable option for mobile, because on mobile you don't have necessarily the best controls possible for real-time action, but in terms of turn-based,
that's true. That's true. And let's move on to our next one.
Oh yeah, this is one of my saddest inclinations of things that happened.
This is from what I don't want to call. It's not like the golden age of games per se, but it is from our golden age of life, because it's
like from the late 90s, early 2000s.
Basically, when we were teenagers.
Yeah, when we had hair.
And well, you had hair. I still
hope for the future.
Well, that one, that's more arguable. But when around the kids get huddled around the monitor, or the phone.
Let us tell
There
you
was
of the olden days of.
there was a time around the 2000s when the it marketing thing to teenagers, because tweens weren't a thing back then yet, to teenagers was extreme.
Oh yeah.
Anything that had an X in it, the X was the largest, the largest font type in the title, and anything that didn't have an X in it got an extreme in front of it. And
I remember the G.I. Joe Extreme, the TV series, the cartoon.
yeah, and possibly the most extreme of things were extreme sports.
Oh yeah, I love those things.
And in our case, extreme sports games.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we're talking about things like skateboarding, snowboarding, BMX
Oh,
riding. What am I like? What's the thing with the rollerblades?
I'm not
This
sure if
was
there
a
are any games with that one
no.
specifically.
There were. I don't know about games. I'm just talking about the overall.
Oh yeah.
And there were movies about this stuff,
Oh yeah.
like entire movies dedicated. Some of them. There's a comedy called. Is it called? I think it's called Out Cold, because it's about snowboarding. I'm not really sure if that's the title, but it's a really funny comedy. It's basically Casablanca, but in a comedy snowboarding theme.
I have
And
not seen that one.
and there's a very young Zach Galifianakis in it. And funny Zach Galifianakis in it. So yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it's called Out Cold. Check it out. You will not regret it. Also, you'll get a very good idea of what this extreme movie thing was about. But the games. Tony
The games
Hawk.
were amazing. Tony Hawk was the man. Like, if you saw him at the X Games doing the 900 for the first time, like the 900 is him going on to up to a half pipe, like moving side to side for a couple of minutes to get speed, then jumping up into the air and rotating 900 degrees, and then landing alive without his neck broken. I saw that on Eurosport and I was just amazed. Man, this is something. And people do that as a warm up now. The technique has evolved, but he was the man for many, many years.
It's extreme. Yes. Yeah. So the Tony Hawk, what was it called?
Tony Hawk Pro Skater. It's actually a funny thing. Tony Hawk was sometimes when he's asked about the game, said, "Yeah, the games are nice and all, but I still don't like that I had to learn skateboarding because of them."
What?
He tends to joke that he learned skateboarding because they put him in a skateboarding game.
Okay.
He has a sense of humor about this stuff.
Okay, that is good. That is funny. And he did make, he made a lot of money by him being in the circuit and becoming a bit of a sports celebrity.
Yep.
But the licensing deal, I don't think it hurt him. But these were the things that we used to play after school. Go to a colleague or friend's house who had a computer who could run it. I didn't at the time. And we just played for hours, like hot seating it, basically changing once one of us lost, or we were trying crazy things, trying to get all of the bonuses or weird combos and that sort of stuff. The music,
music, absolutely.
The music was equally very time appropriate because there was a lot of new metal in those things, which is thankfully a genre that died. Although I gotta be honest, full disclosure, I did listen to a fair bit of Limp Bizkit back then. I know. But yeah, and that's not what it ended. Like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, which got to, I don't know how
I'm not even sure. I think there's like 10 of them. One of them was built with a Kinect in mind, and it was unplayable because it was horrible.
Obviously. So I don't even know how many variations made of Tony Hawk. But then there were the other ones. There was, like I said, there were snowboarding ones. I don't think they ever made a surfing one. Although,
I think there were surfing. I know there was a ski jet one as well.
yeah, that's true. Um, and you would kind of be inclined to put these next to like car racing games or stuff like that, but those are their own separate
Yeah,
things.
these
Although
were
they were
these were
kind of
mostly
similar.
about chaining tricks. Like you had 2 or 3 minutes to move on a map as much as you wanted, and you had to do crazy ass combo tricks to get the maximum score possible and just look amazing while doing it.
Exactly.
And there was actually one car game that did have that in mind. It was Burnout 3 Takedown. Or I think some of the earlier Burnout games had that idea in the crash mode, where you would just drive your car into traffic, it would explode, and then you had to sort of hit more traffic with your car and get more bonus points. They
Yeah,
removed that because it was too fun.
do as much damage, weird stuff as
Yeah.
possible.
It all came from the scoring system, like that. You did a 360 spin into that, into that, into that. That was the core of it. Like that, seeing that growing chain, that growing X multiplier just piling up, just made you feel so good. Which is why it was used in Goat Simulator. Which is why Goat Simulator is a fantastic game.
And it's basically it's a combo mechanic. It's something that I guess existed before that in
The fighting
arcade,
games,
in
yeah.
the arcade fighting games, yeah. But I think Tony Hawk or those types of games took
Yeah.
it to a slightly different sort of level, which was then reabsorbed into the fighting games, and those became more complicated as well.
Okay, so I counted them. There's 16 Tony Hawk Pro Skater games.
Holy shit! Shiitake mushrooms.
Yeah.
16?
Yeah.
Wow. Now that was popular mainstream stuff.
The
There's
last one
no,
was made 3 years ago.
yeah, no one cares. No one. I don't think no one cares about it for the past 10 years, to say the least.
Well, people care about Skate. They keep asking Skate to come back, which was Electronic Arts' response to Tony Hawk.
Really?
Yeah, people really want Skate to come back. Mostly because I think one of the reasons is that PewDiePie played it on the stream once, played one of the games on the stream once and really liked it. He liked it so much, and the people that watch his videos liked it so much that they reprinted the game because it started selling again.
Okay, that's, well, shit.
Yeah, some random dude on the internet liked the game so much and generated so much interest for it that the game sold again. That's how we got internet influencers.
Yeah, considering how many followers that the guy has, I don't think he's a random dude anymore.
Yeah, no, I think he was close to being the number one YouTube channel back then, but it was like many years ago.
But yeah, extreme sports games were their own very big thing.
Yeah,
And you played them even if you weren't that much into. I wasn't into the.
but they were so fun,
sports.
especially if they used to hide stuff in them. They used to have secret characters. Spider-Man was a playable character in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, and he wasn't a skin. He was Spider-Man. He had spider powers. He could shoot webs.
Ah, okay,
It was
that's
amazing.
nice.
And one of my favorites was also Dave Mirra's Freestyle BMX. I played it for 3 months, basically nonstop. Well, that along Morrowind and Ultima 4 because I had only 3 games and my CD drive was on the frets.
Yeah.
I love that game. It was amazing. And actually, that series spun off into XXX BMX, which had the same basic gameplay, but it used models of girls with no tops. And it's not a very beloved game. I think the developer got sued a bit because I think it still used some of Dave Mirra's branding in it or something.
Okay.
And one thing that I only said never happened. There's such a thing as motorcycle freestyle, which is basically this kind of extreme sport, but there was never a game made out of it. Like I used to love motorcycle freestyle because it was just the tricks. You didn't have to like climb over things like you do in the stuff like you see on Trials, the Trial series from Ubisoft. It was just doing tricks, and I would have loved to see that made into a video game, but I don't think they ever made one. If you know a video game with freestyle motorcycle, like doing the Superman, the no holds barred something. I forgot what tricks were called. If you know that kind of game, please say so in the comments. I really want to play one.
I know there's a game, there's a relatively successful indie game in which you're basically going downhill on bikes.
I don't know.
Not exactly what you're asking for, but it's it's a BMX sort of downhill.
No. This was just like
riding.
This was motorcycles going up a giant ramp and then into the air and then landing. It would have been it would have been a really like small scale game, but it would have been nice.
Yeah, those types of games tended to be a thing on older consoles and on the older on the Commodores and the Spectrums and the early PCs actually.
Yeah, because it sort of started with Skate or Die, where 360 degrees, 180 degrees skate back in the olden days, doing tricks and stuff. Which the sad part is that when you actually try to do tricks and stuff, a giant skull would come after you and eat you, unless you went to a skate park and skated. It seemed kind of stupid. That seems so stupid to me. Like the open world that you started in Skate or Die or 1080 degrees skate, whatever it was called, that let you do all sorts of tricks and go to ramps and basically have fun, but you have only 1 minute to do so because a skull would come and eat you. I hated it.
Well, I guess that might have reflected or represented the.
Yeah, I think it was a port of the arcade or something.
The fact that you're putting yourself at enhance the risk of dying by doing those things.
No, you don't have a choice because that thing would move faster than you. You would always be eaten.
One of my favorite things to watch back then were bloopers from accidents, and watching extreme sports accidents is immensely cathartic for no reason whatsoever. Just because I guess us as humans just like to see other humans get knocked the fuck out.
The amount of crotches destroyed by this
crotches destroyed, teeth expunged from their mouths and whatnot. Anyway, how far are we into this one?
1 hour and 20 minutes. I think we should leave the rest for next time.
Okay, we have we still have a bunch on our list, but I think we're gonna leave the rest for a future episode because we had quite a talk about a very many number of things.
Yep.
What do you have planned? I have nothing planned on my channel for this week because it's a super crazy busy week for me at university. So what do you have planned on the channel of yours?
Well, when I'm not getting some more molars pulled from my head, I'm gonna try and make a short history of Romanian game development. It's gonna be rough. It's gonna be not super in depth. You can think of it sort of as a pilot, maybe a backdoor pilot for something else, something like. You know how the year that game series started with me doing a video with what was the best year for video games? Well, I'm working on the idea of expanding that to Romanian games as well. We'll see. It may be a thing next year. We'll look at the analytics and see what goes.
It might be, but I don't think you'd have that much material to work with, to be honest.
Yeah, and I'm actually thankful for that because, well, the year that game series has been a bit tiring, so it's ending next week. I'm not going to do it until the end of the year. I'm going to condense 2015 to this year into one show because, well, not a lot of things happened in the past couple of years. There's just the rise of the PUBGs and the Fortnites and fidget spinners, I guess, and
the game as service thing. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
True.
Like I think I can condense it. I can condense this part of the end of this console generation in one show.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like something that makes sense.
And there's going to be a history show about Strife. The old one.
Okay, I don't think I'm familiar with that one.
Imagine if Doom had dialogue.
Okay.
And NPCs.
That's interesting. Kind of. Maybe. Oh, before we go, just want to pitch something to our listeners to a certain degree. We are considering making episode 30 of GameTales an honest to goodness live stream.
Yeah.
With us on actual cams.
Yeah.
So it's most likely going to happen at the end of the year.
Around 23rd of December, maybe, or somewhere around there.
Probably not on the 23rd, but around that, maybe in that week. So let us know if you'd be interested in how interested you are in that, because we've been considering for a while, and we thought making our live stream test to be the 30th episode. That would be something a bit special. It's close to the end of the year. We may or may not be playing Diablo 2, so might be something interesting. So yeah, let us know if that's something that interests you, because that's something we are kind of considering doing for the 30th episode.
Well, I guess that would be it. Thanks you to everybody for joining us on the stream. On the stream, not stream. We'll see you join us for the stream next time. Thank you for joining us on the podcast this time. It's kind of late and I'm a bit half asleep already. So take care, everybody. Have a good time playing games, and hopefully remembering that extreme sport games used to exist and they were awesome. Goodbye.
See you next time.